Welcome back to another episode of the Religion of Human Nature podcast. This is a very, very special episode. I say that on a lot of episodes, but they are special to me, so that kind of fits. We have two wonderful, I'm going to call them personalities for lack of a better term. Oded Fehr is an actor. You might know him from Blacklist, 24, Once Upon a Time, Resident Evil, but I know him best from Deuce, Bigalow, which I already told him, which was one of my favorite movies when I was younger. Oded, how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, good. I'm good. I'm on my 12th day of quarantine in Toronto. So my hotel room is my prison, and I'm doing, I think, okay. Do I seem like I'm doing okay?
You sound great. You look great. Yeah. Okay. And do they bring you room service? I mean, that would be.
No, I've been cooking for myself.
Okay.
Every meal, which I'm very proud of. But what happens is, of course, I make way too much food every time. So then I eat the same thing for 3 days straight. Yeah.
All right. Wonderful. And Sarah Rice, who I've already admitted to her that she's a former, and I'm using former in quotes because you never say never, MTV Challenge member. You can say never. New season out, and she's not on that, at least as far as we know. And also a host of an awesome podcast called Brain Candy, which I don't know how else to describe it except for I'm going to use the tagline. You said candy for your brain.
Yeah.
So Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing real well. Happy to be here.
Thanks for coming on. So, Oded, we're going to start with you. And today's topic is typecasting or stereotypes. And I think both of you have really interesting perspectives on this topic. So, Oded, you're Israeli and have been casted in many roles, Middle Eastern-ish. I'm going to use that. Is it hard trying to break out of that role, or do you just have to embrace it?
Well, I think. Typecasting is something that we all naturally do. I think I kind of realize I'm screwed in that respect, and I mean that in a light way. When my wife and we're married 20 years this coming December. When we were filling up paperwork, I think for getting married, I think it was. She turns to me and she goes, what are you? And I go, what do you mean? Well, I mean, what do I call you? You're Middle Eastern, you're not Hispanic. I'm going, I'm Caucasian. And she goes, come on, you're not Caucasian. And I'm like, but I thought my entire life, I thought I was Caucasian, right? I mean, I have, I'm half German, quarter Dutch, and I have a quarter Spanish. But obviously my own wife didn't see me as such. It's not a bad thing. It's just, the way I was perceived. I think typecasting is something we all do. We see somebody, we really like what they're doing, and we want to see that again. You read a script, and in your mind, you're obviously immediately associating the characters to ones you've seen before. And so typecasting is a very natural thing that we all do. As an actor, typecasting could be, something that you feel is, not allowing you to do what it is that you want to do. But I kind of, when I first started 20 years ago, Middle Eastern were always the bad guy with the, twirling mustache and all the rest. It was very difficult to get any other work than like a bad guy. And I, turned down a lot of work that was more of those kind of characters. But then came Sleeper Cell, and Sleeper Cell was such a phenomenal show. If you don't know what Sleeper Cell was, it was a show on Showtime that was written by Ethan Reef and Cyrus Voris, and it was incredibly, phenomenally written. It was with Michael Ealy and myself were the two leads, and interestingly enough, I'm playing a terrorist there in a sleeper cell in Los Angeles, but that opened up for me a million opportunities on television that were not necessarily ethnic. So typecasting is something that, to summon it, I feel is something we all naturally do. It's not a bad thing. It's only bad if you are somehow unhappy in what it is that you're doing. And you have to objectively look at yourself and ask yourself, can I play the weak young nerd? No, I'm a guy in my 50s with a deep voice and I have an intense look on my face. You have to recognize what it is that you're able to play.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, is that sometimes you have to embrace it, and unless it's something that's really bothering you. And I think it happens in all industries, right? We see a certain athlete and we only want that performance from that athlete. We see, I'm a rabbi, and there's an expectation that I'm only in one bracket. And that can be for any profession, and certainly, obviously, Hollywood is to the extreme because we see it. It's so visual. Sarah, your fame, or the beginning of your fame, came from a reality TV show, MTV The Challenge, and you're depicted in a certain way, even though it's still reality TV. They're still showing the moments they pick out they pick and choose. So how do you break free from that? And how do you move into the next phase of your life where you can say you're not just Sarah from The Challenge?
Yes. And thinking about that, typecast and what that really means, I had kind of a unique experience where me being maybe like the book, the story doesn't match the cover. People looked at me, and when I went and applied for that show and tried out to be on the Real World, I had jet black hair, I had piercings all over my face, I'm like covered in tattoos. Everybody thinks that I'm going to be a hairdresser or work at a bar. And I was a nanny, and I didn't really drink. And I am a summer camp counselor. And people were like, it was like cognitive dissonance. Like they did not match what they thought they wanted me to be. So I think me not being that stereotypical, person with like what you'd expect from somebody who looked like that was why I got cast. And they were like, oh, we don't usually see that. So that was really helpful. But then I was very, very lucky, and very lucky, or I don't know, maybe but I feel like I got a very accurate edit, and I got a very, I didn't ever feel like they showed a side of me that was a side of me that I didn't want people to see. I think maybe because I didn't match what people thought of somebody with tattoos and piercings, they kind of went with that and really just let me be, like the nice girl who's like the camp counselor one who makes all the fun games. And that became kind of my reputation. And I didn't have too difficult of a transition in leaving, the show to do regular jobs, especially since, I work now as a marriage and family therapist in my real life. And it's been really helpful to be able to have that kind of experience and to be able to understand, I've met a whole bunch of different people, and the people that I've met through the shows have really helped me kind of break away from some of the fixed ideas that I have about certain people, about where they come from, who, anything, you name it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I wonder if the next question is sort of like, have you ever faced that typecasting or their stereotyping for either of you in the real world because of who you are on screen? Meaning like, Oded, you gave this great answer about your wife. Like she really thought in some ways, maybe this, I also, even I'm Jewish, but the rabbi gig kind of gives away that I'm also Jewish. But it's, there's often like, oh, I got a call today. Someone says, I just assumed you were the most religious person. You didn't know how to talk to someone and all you wanted. And I was like, no. So how does that, how do you ever depicted like when you meet someone at a restaurant or in your life, do they only see you as sort of, I'm going to pick on Jafar because I thought it was a great depiction of Jafar. Do they think that you're that person? And Sarah, also like when you see people in real life, or do they just want to talk about moments you're like, well, that was like 2 seconds of what really happened?
Mm-hmm.
Either one. Yeah.
Well, I started my career with the Mummy movies. There was the 2 Mummy movies, and
It's my boyfriend's favorite movie, and he is going to be so jealous. And you're going to have to hang out for a little bit afterwards, and so that he can meet you. Because I mean, I didn't want to just come out and say it, but
I'm happy. I'm happy to do it.
and I might get points for this.
But it was funny because I had the long hair and the beard, and and then I did Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo, and I mean, you can imagine I attracted all the wrong attention from all the wrong people. Again, being an actor, I guess it's part of walking around and people associate you to the characters you play, and therefore, they love you, they hate you. I mean, I've had people meet me who watched Sleeper Cell and were scared to death when they met me, or I had, people who, absolutely, the Deuce Bigalow character, and I was accosted one day by this woman who hated the fact that I cut my hair, that I had my hair short. Obviously, I'm very, very different. I'm a very goofy father and husband, and from these characters that I play. But I think our perception of who we are is many times very different to what we are to others. And again, these are things that I learned about myself as an actor, and I think my first experience was on Deuce Bigalow, and we're shooting the movie, and the director, who was slightly shorter than me and absolutely lovely, comes up to me, and he's going, so Oded, I was thinking that maybe what we should do here is maybe, your reaction is this and that, and you're doing this, and I'm listening to him, and he goes, or not, we don't have to do it. I don't want to do it, let's not do it. And I'm like, no, what? He goes, I don't know, you look angry. And I was like, okay, so concentrating face, I look angry. All right, write that down.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. I feel I have been very blessed in my life. I feel we are, as human beings, are constantly fighting instincts, right? Mm-hmm. Everything is an instinct, right? Mm-hmm. I think typecasting is an instinct. Racism is an instinct. Mm-hmm. It's all instincts. And we have this to tell us, okay, I know I'm feeling like I should feel this way because I'm alone and I'm a minority surrounded by people who are not like me. Or I feel this way because I see, a minority and I'm surrounded by people who do like me. And I feel like that is different, and I should feel danger, or I should feel distance, or I should not, because it's the unknown or whatever it is. But that's what makes us human. We're able to go, I know why I'm having this thought. I know why I'm feeling this, I'm not going to act on it, or I'm going to challenge myself, and it's all of it is the same. It's the typecasting. It's the thinking to myself, well, do I want to take a chance on this actor who is not what I expected, or do I not want to take a chance on this actor,
You said something really, really great there, where you talked about what we see, and then our head is for us to sort of break that down. And I've been thinking a lot about The Mask, how like a year and a half ago, if you walked in with a hood on and a mask, I mean, everyone would, and now if you're not doing that, you're looked at like, what is wrong with you? Right? We've totally flipped the switch because our head had to overcome what we would normally see. Now, now I'm more afraid if you don't wear a mask than if I am. Sarah, your thoughts of like people coming up and wanting a specific Sarah, or?
It's really interesting. When I was still filming the show and it hadn't aired yet. I was at an event for, I was like a Wounded Warriors event, and I'm the worst with actors' names. I'm like definitely turning my mother, but he's from This Is Us, Milo, starts with a V.
Mhm.
I don't remember, but I was having having a conversation with him, and he was asking, you know, what's it like to be on reality TV? That must be weird. And I said, I don't even know because it hasn't even aired yet. But we started talking about people, like what the difference is between an actor and a reality star, and how I had a lot of feeling like worries and I had a lot of nerves because as an actor, you play the character. And if people don't like you, they don't like you because you played that character. And they could be angry at, you know, whoever from whatever movie. If they don't like me, I'm being me. I am Sarah on there. And that kind of cuts a little bit because it's like, you know, if somebody came up to you and were like, oh, I really didn't like you in The Mummy. You were like an evil villain, blah, 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 blah. You're like, okay, what ifs? If somebody came up to me and was like, I really didn't like you in that season when you were really mean to this chick and you totally manipulated the game to win. I'm like, it's hard to kind of not take that personally. And so in just listening to what you were saying, Oded, I jotted down identifying with the typecast rather than your own identity, I think where people can get into trouble. And I think that's whether we're on television, whether we're on, you know, a reality show, or whether we're just people floating around out there. If we become the idea of what other people want us to be rather than who we actually believe ourselves to be, I feel like you get, you know, the high school, the guy who's like 20 years out of high school, but still like locked into I'm the, you know, football captain of the football team and whatever. And that he gets locked into that because it's like how everybody saw him. So I think through a lot of my experience in being on television and even in transitioning out of that and having a more like, I don't know, regular person job, I had to really be clear, like really work on my own authenticity and my own identity and understanding for me who I was, despite that clip that everybody's seen 1,000 times of me crying on the side of a mountain, getting all my money taken away. Like if I locked on to I'm the, like, oh, woe is me, I'm the victim, I always get the short end of the stick, why do my partners always like, you know, why do I always get screwed over in these games? I could easily lock onto that and let that control my life and be in a really sad place and let that like story and that
absolutely. I when I was talking about the typecasting, I was meaning that entirely in the perspective of work. Mm-hmm. Basically, I look at my job as though I'm selling toothbrushes. And sometimes the toothbrushes are flying off the shelves and sometimes nobody wants them. Mm-hmm. And how people perceive that toothbrush is what, you know, they're going to buy or not going to buy. I, as a human being, I completely disassociate myself. And I think it's hugely, hugely important, of course, because I mean, our business is nothing but rejection. Doesn't matter how much you work, for every job that you do get, you know, there's 10 jobs that you didn't get. And that kind of letting that typecasting be somehow affecting me as a human being and judging me as what I am. I'm just this Middle Eastern actor who can only do, you know, Israelis and Arabs, would be, you know, very detrimental. I mean, I don't even see myself as the biggest part of me is, again, as a husband and a father, you know, the part that brings home the bacon. By the way, sorry, you know, Jewish.
I'm aware that bacon is a thing. I'm pretty aware.
Not how delicious it is, but
my kids are very curious. I can promise you that.
No, as the guy who as part of my job, I have to objectively look at myself and go where I am in the world of typecasting. But I agree with you, and I can't even imagine. I know as an actor, every time we do these interviews and so on, and myself, it's always 10 times harder than when I'm reading somebody else's lines. So I can't even imagine, what it would be like doing a reality TV show, and obviously a very successful one, and then becoming you, but it's not really you, but it is you.
Yeah,
You know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah, it's like 1%. And then, but I do get this, people expect that I'm going to be bubbly, happy Sarah all the time. That was even hard in relationships or in date where they're like, where's the happy bubble? What do you mean you're mad? You don't get mad. I didn't see you mad on 10 years of TV. Okay, well, I do. So that was a kind of a tough one too.
Oded, for those who are listening, you won't know this, but those who are watching, it's an interesting conversation because of the painting you have behind you, Oded, which is James Bond. Sean Connery, a blessed memory, just passed away from 2 weeks of recording this. My father raised me on James Bond, but he also is to my knowledge, he didn't really poke his head out so much because people wanted him to be James Bond all the time. I mean, if you even look at the roles he took later on, they were either sort of like a very sophisticated role, like in Finding Forrester, or like The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, where he's basically just a different version of a James Bond. And I imagine that played a role in him not like coming out and just doing everything, because who wouldn't have wanted a piece of him? So we've spoken about how we might be typecasted. What about how do we not judge others? How do we not judge a book by its cover and take what we won't want projected on us? What do we do? Is there ways we can be better at that? Sarah, you're not.
I feel like the easiest one is just meet people. Is you like have conversations with people who aren't like you. We have this idea of the idea of like typecast. We're seeing as we have more diverse scripts and more we're telling different stories in Hollywood, that our stereotype, or like our idea of what a Black man in America is not just this little teeny tiny, like it's huge. There's like such a broad there's so many different possibilities, and we have and being able to meet people and being able to this is why like representation matters. This is why having stories available to kids in classrooms that are stories about kids that aren't like them or from different places. I feel like I was very lucky. I had a mom who was a tour guide growing up. And so she took me all over the world, and I traveled and I met people everywhere. And it was really easy for me and she would take me to every single different kind of church and different religious service. You name it, I've been there. And she said, I'm going to do this because I want you to see what the commonalities are. What's the common thread? And I learned that love is love, that friendship matters, that caring for your neighbor is important, that giving more than you receive is important. There were common themes, but the only way for you to realize that, there's much more between group commonalities than there even are in group similarities, then we see we're not much different than everybody, and we can kind of let go of a little more and maybe, paint a little broader picture.
I agree. I mean, and this is very much to do with what I said earlier, which our instincts are such that force us to take that path of whatever is different from us is potentially dangerous and therefore should be feared. And we want to associate ourselves, and we're safer when we're in a group of people who are similar to us. And that is, I grew up in Israel, and I grew up in a very non-traditional home. My grandmother loved the Christmas tree. That she was Dutch by origin, and she loved the Christmas tree. So she used to have a Christmas tree during Christmas, even though nobody celebrated Christmas. She loved it. We didn't really, keep the holidays or do things like that in the more traditional way, but we obviously did, and you took it for granted because you live in Israel and you're Jewish, and Israel is, everybody's Jewish around you, and it's part of the thing, and you go to do a bar mitzvah and all the rest of it. And as I grew older, I kind of started realizing that a lot of the conflict around me is all done in the name of religion. And I'm bringing that up, and the reason I'm bringing that up is I feel, my wife has kind of helped me see the beautiful side of religion, the side of faith, the side of feeling, safety, of community as well, and so on. It's a very healthy thing. The problem about religion, and Jeremy, I don't know that if you meant to go in this direction, but it has to do with typecasting or seeing ourselves as a certain way. As far as I'm concerned, the problem is the group issue. Like, this is us, and and there's a big part of the Jewish religion, same as the Christian religion and Muslim, Islam, and almost every religion, that kind of says, we're the chosen ones. I mean, seriously, the Jews are the chosen ones, right? I mean, it's us. I mean, listen, they're all great. Don't get me wrong. They're great. But we're the chosen ones. And having that separation is something that I at least try always to teach my kids. You believe in anything you want, and you have any kind of, follow the religion or whichever religion you want, but always in the back of your mind know that this guy might be right, you might be wrong. And therefore, this guy has exactly the same right for his beliefs as you do. The minute we say we somehow are smarter, better, faster, stronger than somebody else, we're basically becoming racists or typecasters, or these people can only do this, and they, and I can do that. And I think that's the dark side of typecasting. I don't even know how we got into this, and I just went.
No, I think, Oded, you hit on the point of sort of this podcast, which is that I do believe that the negativity around religion, which all religions again have, but the beauty of them, we take the negativity and we've sort of categorized religion in that way. But religion in its essence is actually very beautiful because of community, structure, humility, which is the number one key of understanding what the idea, the concept of God is not just that something is reigning over you, but it's that you're not the be all and end all, which is very hard to see someone across the street and think like that. Yes. But something we can't explain is a little easier. And so I believe a lot of people who've rejected religion still are practicing religion. They're just morphing it into what they're calling ethics or human nature, and which is the point of the podcast. And so I 100% agree. For me personally, yes, I was born Jewish, but I also have chosen because I believe that sort of, and I mean this humbly, the Judaism that I provide for my community is one that is of a structure to be a better person. It is not to eliminate people from the world or live siloed. It is to have a better structure for you. So things that are bad, we eliminate. Things that are good, we incorporate, right? Yeah. Passover Seder is good because you get together with your family, you tell a real historical story, you sing, you have shared dishes, you sing songs. That by nature is good.
As a therapist, we know rituals are fantastic, and you incorporate all the elements of a ritual that make up the stuff that makes us feel good. if
Yeah,
we ever do it under the framework of yes, that's what it provides, structure.
sitting Shiva is one of the most important things you could do, forcing you to mourn, forcing you to have people around you, because you have to have a certain amount of people for prayer in the morning, prayer in the evening. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful.
The Jewish faith does death perfect in my mind. My uncle is Jewish, and my aunt they were all, converted and raised like that. And every single time somebody from that family passed away, I'm like, oh, can we just take a page out of this book? Look at that healing process. Forced grieving. I love it. Look at your feelings, people.
Yeah, 100%. The Jewish gift to the modern world
yes.
is mourning rituals and marriage rituals, which also are pretty interesting and fun, and the celebration, and
yes.
the bar mitzvah is, it's way down the line of the things that we can, even maybe it's the biggest known, but it's 100% agree. I want to say one more question to the group, and that is, so if there are people thinking about getting into reality TV or acting, and do you have any advice to them if they want to sort of get started? Oded, you mentioned that at the very beginning you didn't. There were some roles you turned down. Looking back on that, was that a smart move, or in both of your worlds, you just take the opportunity when it comes?
And I think I think it's definitely smart to turn down things that you don't think are going to be helpful to your career. Of course, we never know exactly 100%. I mean, doing Deuce Bigalow was not a movie that immediately comes to mind of like, oh, I have to do this movie. But when I read it, it had so much heart, even though it was a ridiculous comedy, that it turned out great. I do a lot of independent movies that I don't necessarily have to do now, but I do them because I love working with young talent and doing things that kind of have the potential, but you don't know, and you might or might not enjoy. But the most important thing is that the people that you get to work with are fabulous. I've been doing this for 20 years, and that's really now in my life is the number one thing. I've been unlucky enough and lucky enough to only work with, I don't want to use the bad word, but really terrible people once or twice in my life, and that is once or twice too many. The most important thing that you could do as far as being an actor or generally, I think in this profession, is, like I said, look at it like you're selling toothbrushes. Separate yourself completely and entirely from your profession, and be able to look at yourself objectively in order to know what it is that you're selling. I'm never going to play the young college nerd because I'm 50 or turning 50, and just to have the deep voice and the angry look, and I'm just never going to be that guy. And you have to just look at it objectively and go, okay, what is it that I'm able to do, and what is it that I'm not able to do? And if you're able to look at yourself objectively and then disconnect yourself from all of the hardship of being turned down 1,000 times and not getting the roles you want, and even, God forbid, being kicked off of a show, which never happened to me so far, but God forbid that happens. It still has nothing to do with who you are as a human being, as a friend, as a husband, as a boyfriend, as a lover, as a whatever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Life is too short to waste it on being attached to what it is that you do.
Sarah, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think as far as reality television goes, I think it's so important to really know who you are going in, because if you don't have a good idea of who you are, they'll tell you, and it might not be the version of yourself or the story that you wanted to tell or the side you wanted to show. And I think that we have to be the ones to define who we are and what we believe and what we represent, rather than allowing producers who have a different agenda than maybe we do. Not maybe, definitely, in mind. So it's like knowing who you are first. And I think that unfortunately the age that they pick for people to be on reality television is the age where you know the least about who you are going to be, which is why I'm really trying to specialize in working with people who have been on reality television and helping them transition back into the quote unquote, no pun intended, real world. Because there's really no kind of net afterwards. And there's really nobody who's going to, you know, that when the cameras stop rolling and your season is done, you can still really care, and that becomes a big part of your life. But for everybody else, it was just that 15 minutes. And so transitioning through that and having a good support system through that is really important.
Thank you both. It's been a great conversation.
Yes.
You both are very insightful and thoughtful, and I really appreciate your time and your insight. And thank you both. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.